Welcome to the Bald Brad Show. It is Tuesday, February 20th, and Joe Biden, good old Joey, is still the worst president by far in American history. Patriots, it's great to be back with you on this fine Tuesday morning. And boy, oh boy, is our lead story a banger and one you are thoroughly going to enjoy. But I need to do some setup here because we all went through the 2020 election with Donald J. Trump, the greatest president in modern history, versus Joe Biden, the worst president in modern history. And when you looked around, you saw Donald Trump selling out arenas, thousands of people inside, thousands of people outside, the merchandise, all these things. And then you look at Joe Biden, empty parking lots, fumbling through his words, can't keep up with the teleprompter, forgets who the hell he is, all these things. Then you look at Donald Trump, parades, thousands of people lining the streets on land. And then you look at the sea and there's boat parades taking place for this man with Make America Great Again flags and shirts and hats and all this stuff. And then you look at Joey sleeping, barely to get through an interview. And then the 2020 election comes around and Joe Biden wins. And everyone's like, well, that doesn't make sense. Nobody showed up for that guy. Matter of fact, I don't know too many people that were even voting for Joey. How did he get 82, 83 million votes? That's a little weird. How are people voting from empty parking lots? How are people voting from places that don't exist? How is all this taking place? Why was there a plumbing issue all of a sudden in multiple places while everyone was asleep? Why was there a vertical spike during the election night when everybody goes to sleep and Donald Trump was winning and everybody wakes up, all of a sudden Joey's winning? Again, that nobody shows up for? Well, folks, report claims mail-in ballot fraud handed Biden election win in 2020. Without mail-in ballots, specifically the fraud, the Heartland Institute says Trump would have won 311 electoral votes to Biden's 227. Now, there's going to be a lot of flurry of a debate here among political analysts and scholars regarding this find, this research. So it says here, while many acknowledge that election fraud may occur, it is widely accepted that such incidences are anomalies and occur in numbers too low to impact the results. Fair, we'll come back to this, fair, but here's the thing. We never really looked into the fraud in the first place regarding the 2020 election. They were calling these recounts audits, but they were never audits. They never looked through the signatures that didn't match up half the time. They didn't look at all this stuff. Do you guys remember all these claims where they were trying to vote for Trump, but it automatically was putting their vote in place for Biden, all these foozeries, all these things taking place, or they're turning off the security cameras, bringing in like full bins of ballots. We saw videotape of them shoving just 50 ballots into a mailbox. All these things were taking place. Nobody really looked under the hood. And if you recall, who wanted to look under the hood, you guys? Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz wanted to look under the hood. On January 6th, on the Senate floor, Ted Cruz had the votes. Ted Cruz had the senators. And what happened on January 6th, you guys? That was going to look into the election interference, that was going to look into this election fraud? January 6th. The insurrection! Makes you wonder if the FBI was on ground, because we know for a fact there was informants. Rumor is upwards of hundreds. They storm, air quotes, the Capitol. Ted Cruz loses the votes the same day. On the floor, as it was happening, had the votes. Insurrection happens. They all leave the floor. They clear out the place. They get everything figured out. They come back on the floor. Ted Cruz no longer has the votes. Interesting. A central question about the 2020's election outcome was whether the amount of fraud committed was outcome determinative. In Heartland's news report, research concluded that without mail-in ballot fraud, Donald Trump would have won the election. Heartland, a public policy think tank, characterizes these findings as stunning, advocating for a series of policy reforms aimed at bolstering the security of future elections. Now, you would expect both sides to want this, right? Because I was told this is the cleanest, fairest election that ever happened. That's what we've been told for years, in the same way we were told the insurrection was equivalent to Pearl Harbor, was equivalent to World War II, storming the beaches in Normandy. Doesn't sound like it. Sounds like something that was a cover-up. Sounds like something that our government had its hand in. And now that Joe Biden's running the country into the ground, this all of a sudden comes out. Makes you wonder what the hell's going on here. But what was the conclusion? It was drawn based on a collaborative Heartland Institute Rasmussen report survey. Released in December 2023, the survey documented voters who self-admitted to mail-in voter fraud and revealed that a fifth of mail-in ballots in the 2020 election were illegally cast. God, that sounds a lot like what I was mentioning for years. People voting from properties that didn't exist, middle of freeways out in the desert. So according to the survey, it said this. Check this out, folks. 21% of mail-in voters admitted that in 2020 they voted in a state where they are no longer a permanent resident. God, what would have kicked that out? What? Hold on a second. Let's use our brains here. I know you guys are all capable of it, but the left isn't. What would have caught this? Oh, an audit. That's right. Yeah, an audit. Actual forensic audit on this stuff. Looking at the registry. Does this person actually physically live here anymore? Turns out they don't. Oh, 21% of mail-in voters admitted that they filled out a ballot for a friend or family member. Oh, but we were told that didn't happen, you guys. Cleanest and fairest election ever. There's no fraud, 21%. The ones we know about, oh, it just keeps going. It keeps going. 17% of mail-in voters said they signed a ballot for a friend or family member without his or her permission. I'm not making it up. It's right there. 19% of mail-in voters said that a friend or family member filled out their ballot in part or in full on their behalf. So if 17% are signing it, 21% just voted or they don't even live anymore. God, it sounds a lot like election fraud to me. After analyzing the raw survey data, we were also able to conclude that 28% of respondents who voted by mail admitted to committing at least one kind of voter fraud. At least. That means 1, 2, 3, maybe more. This means that 1 in 4 ballots cast by mail in 2020 were likely cast fraudulently and thus should not have been counted. Now, here's the thing. When you hear 21% of mail-in admitted to this, 21% admitted to that, 17% admitted to this, the question is that were some of these Trump supporters? So it goes both ways, but it continues here. After analyzing in the raw data, they go further on to say, because Joe Biden received significantly more mail-in votes than Donald Trump, we conclude that the 2020 election outcome would have been different in the key swing states that Donald Trump lost by razor-thin margins: Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, under the 28% scenario. The Institute's analysis further explores the differential rates of admitted fraud between Trump and voters. Here we go. Suggesting that even with a conservative estimate of fraud, Trump would have emerged victorious in key battleground states, meaning more fraud was committed under Joe Biden voters than Donald Trump voters. This scenario, they argue, would have granted Trump a decisive win in the Electoral College, shifting the final tally to 311 electoral votes for Trump against 227 for Biden. This would have all come out. This would have all come out if our country actually did their damn job in securing our elections. Democrats supposedly want this, but it doesn't sure sound like it. You're not going to hear about this on any of the news. You're not going to hear anybody talk about this, folks. And here, a guy in his closet with a camera and a microphone is bringing attention to the fact of something we all knew that we alleged took place, and that was voter fraud. We saw people take the registry and say, Nevada, for example, and again, go to apartment complexes where somebody allegedly voted and was registered to vote from, don't live there. Interesting, because that concludes exactly what we're seeing here in the report. So there's verifiable things that took place already that we knew about that are being verified through what it seems like an observational study where people are just openly admitting to voter fraud. And it's wild that nobody wants to talk about it. If they got away with this then, what makes you think they're not going to get away with it now? And we know if they were willing to do this in 2020, and looking how Joey's doing, which isn't so hot at the moment, even though a good portion of the country would still vote for the guy and he could very well still win. What's stopping these states? What's stopping these people within these states, meaning these Democrats, from committing election fraud once again. Donald Trump doesn't pay a parking ticket on time. Grand jury, you know, he gets a $350 million fine, but people admittedly have done election fraud. Nothing happens. Well, we just want to make an example out of Donald Trump through his civil suit in New York City. $350 million sounds about right. Let's go ahead and give them that because, he overstated his assets. Election fraud, swung the election. Turns out that Donald Trump should have won. Nothing being done. Nobody made an example of. Just perfect. Sounds like our government's totally trustworthy. Totally trustworthy. It goes on. Our analysis indicates that 28% fraud rate, Biden voters admitted to committing at least one form of fraud at a rate of 23%, and Trump voters self-admitted fraud rate 35%. Under this scenario, Trump would have defeated Biden in Georgia, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin and won the Electoral College. So you're seeing different rates there. At the end of the day, the Biden voters basically outpaced in terms of the fraud because it's at least one. Again, that question is very interesting because it's at least one. It still would have beat out Trump. Trump would have still won at the end of the day for that election. So I thought I'd bring that nice one to all of you. It goes a little bit further in depth there, but what do y'all think about that? Donald Trump, allegedly, according to basically this Rasmussen and I don't know who the other person was, the Heartland Institute. It's an observational study, so there could have been some manipulation. There's a lot of bias that could seep into something like that. But nonetheless, it does give a little bit of credibility, a little bit of confirmation bias to us that didn't make sense that Joe Biden won. Seemed like a little foolery is taking place. And now 4 years later, we get something out that basically gives confirmation to that very thing. Well, moving into our next story of the day, we got illegal immigration, folks. And Michigan is the next state asking residents to help house, settle migrants amid crisis at the border. You saw this from specifically New York City with Mayor Eric Adams early on, before their infrastructure collapsed, before they decided throwing all these lawsuits at Donald Trump, to house migrants, these illegal aliens, because they're a right to shelter, their right to house these illegal immigrants. And New York City residents weren't willing to do it, which is amazing, right? Because these are all Democrat-ran areas. And these are the people that expect conservatives to do all these things, but they don't want to do the very thing that they actually voted for, which is to house these illegal immigrants. You wanted all this. So now you're getting it, and all of a sudden you don't want to follow through with it. It's amazing how that works out, right? In the same way in California, they vote for Prop 47 that basically brings down the punishment for stealing certain goods from, basically retail theft. Anything under $950 is a slap on the wrist. And so people start committing all this crime, and all of a sudden these Dems don't like it. These stupid libs that voted for this stuff don't like it. So now they're actually trying to fix it. So it's funny how once it actually impacts them, they see the repercussions of their actions, meaning voting for something that's idiotic. Then all of a sudden they want to change it. Even though you've had conservatives, Republicans saying, hey, probably don't want this. It's probably a bad idea. Probably don't do this, but they still do it anyways. So Michigan is asking residents to house migrants in their homes and help settle them into society as the crisis at the southern border continues. This is really also in part to a lack of education because teachers, educators, parents, Americans just in general don't understand the social fabric that we have in this country is very unique than anywhere else in the rest of the world. We'll come back to this. I think this is a really important concept. We have a social fabric. Ships from the United Kingdom. The United Kingdom's social fabric is different than, say, France. It's different than Germany. It's different than the United States. It's different than Canada. Everybody has their own social fabric. They have their own social creed that they adhere to. And if you have a bunch of people that come here that aren't necessarily opting into that creed, then you have a tear in that social fabric. And the question is that how much can that tear go on before it's not repairable? And that's the question we have to ask as a country with millions of people in this country, upwards of 25 to 30 million people present time in this country that wanted to come here illegally, that don't necessarily want to assimilate to the values and creeds, the laws that are on the books, our Declaration of Independence, as well as our Constitution. They didn't uphold an oath to it. They just came here illegally. I mean, if they didn't respect the Constitution, the rule of law to begin with, why would we expect them to follow the rule of law and want to adhere to the Constitution once they're a U.S. citizen through amnesty, which Joe Biden wants? You have a country right now that will be torn out, will be destroyed from the inside out. Again, I will plug this. I'm going to plug this forever until we write another book. Trojan Horse, How the Left is Destroying America. You're seeing it in real time from the Biden administration. This came out last year, almost a year ago, March 13th, 2022, or 2023, I believe. But what you're seeing right now is the fall of the American Republic, folks. And I mean that in all little sense. I'm not trying to be extreme here. You're seeing the fall. They want these men and women that are coming here illegally, mostly men, to receive their citizenship, possibly, and this is taken up by Congress right now, to join our military. Now, if you want to go through history, try to look at what happened to Rome. Just try to look at certain civilizations, what happened when you had a bunch of people that weren't supposed to be in the country in the first place start taking up arms. Let me know how that one works out for you. Because it didn't work out well for the Romans. It's never worked out well in history, yet we're trying to do it because we got a bunch of idiots that clearly don't know how things function, don't know how things work, don't know how social creeds work. Well, it's going to be the end of America in probably the next 100 years if this continues. The State Department of Labor and Economic Development said volunteers who wish to participate must commit for at least 90 days as part of a refugee support program. Quote, programs like Welcome Corps advance the Office of Global Michigan's mission to make Michigan the home for opportunity for our immigrant, refugee, and ethnic communities. Oh, okay. Expanded refugee settlement. Pathways empower more Michiganders to support our state's growing refugee population and build a more welcoming and inclusive Michigan for all. It's all about inclusive, you guys. It's not actually about following the law. It's not about actually looking at the things that are benefiting Americans and the country. No. It's all about, well, we need to be so inclusive. We need to bring everyone together. Equal opportunity, equal access, all these things. It's like, well, why don't we focus on our own problems and Americans first rather than focusing on those that shouldn't be here in the first place and maybe deport them? I know it's not a great thing to say. These are talking about people, but, hey, let this happen. Let it happen in these areas, folks. Let them carve themselves out. They don't have the money for it. They're going to ask for federal money, which comes out of our pockets at the end of the day. But allow these Democrat cities to crumble, you guys. Allow their infrastructure just to completely collapse. Sponsors would be expected to support newly arrived refugees by greeting them at the airport, securing and preparing initial housing, enrolling children in school, and helping adults find employment. The migrants will come from Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, and Venezuela, all points of origin where many have been hoping to apply for asylum at the U.S.-Mexico border. Oh, really? Oh, they just wanted to apply at the U.S.-Mexico border, passed through it, and made their way all the way to Michigan. Gotcha. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. You also have cities like New York and Chicago having also dealt with issues related to migrants. And in some cases, like New York City, you can actually vote in municipalities if you're a legal immigrant. Yeah, oh yeah, you heard that correctly. I know. You're like, you must have misspoke, Brad. That's not possible. They're not citizens. No. Jerry Nadler spoke on it. Yes, you can vote in municipalities, in certain municipalities in New York City, even if you're an illegal alien. So you pay taxes. You've been paying taxes. Hell, you could have fought for this country, and your vote basically gets thrown away in a way because you have an illegal alien that wanted to come here illegally, didn't serve the country, didn't pay taxes, didn't do anything except break the law, and supersedes your vote. That's just awesome. And you also have Border Patrol Union ripping Biden over a border crisis. You own this catastrophic disaster, but I thought they supported the bill that was put through. That's weird. I know, you guys. I was told by Karine Jean-Pierre in the White House on the podium. I mean, they were standing there. They told us we're supposed to believe everything they say. Why would they lie to us, you guys? What do you mean? What do you mean they would lie? I don't think they would do something like that, would they? Obviously, I'm being facetious. They've been chronic liars and have nothing but lie to us. They lied to us about the election. They lied to us about the insurrection, air quotes, the January 6th debacle, things that Trump said, things that Trump did. They blame everybody and everybody else on the inflation, the Putin price hikes, the supply chain, foreign policy, domestic policy, illegal immigration, all this stuff. They're chronic liars. We're not going to believe a damn thing that comes out of this administration's mouth. So they're telling us the Border Patrol Union, they support everything we do. They have our backs. They love it. They love it. Well, again, the National Border Patrol Council on Monday had some harsh words for little Joey, for President Biden, over his handling of the ongoing border crisis, calling him a coward who has failed to take responsibility. In Joe Biden's defense, you guys, does that look like a gentleman who knows what the hell's going on? I mean, he had a deposition, right? He didn't even know when his own son died. He didn't even know when he was probably married. He literally did not know when he was vice president. You guys, I'm not fully aware that he even knows what's happening at the border. You may go, well, Brad, there's videotape of this guy talking on the border. There's videotape of him saying, there's a crisis happening at the border. Maybe somebody whispered in his ear 30 seconds before he said that, or a minute or 5 minutes or the day of. He wakes up the next day. It's like Groundhog Day, except he forgets. It's all over again. It's, hey, Joey, you're president. Welcome, buddy. This is the White House. It's not a senior citizen living center. I know it looks like one and maybe functions as one now because you're in it, but he don't have a clue, folks. I've always been curious. Some of you thought it was kind of funny. He has to. I'm telling you, somebody's caught this guy naked walking around the White House. Just completely clueless, buck-ass naked, doesn't know where he's at. CPAP still hooked up to him, hose dangling. So, I'm sorry. Hey, we have fun here. We have fun. We're a community of patriots. We have a good time. We got a lot of regulars, a lot of members. We have a good time. If you haven't joined us, we would love for you to join us. Hit that like and subscribe button. So, formerly known as Twitter, when are we going to stop saying that? Honestly, how many Americans don't know that X is now Twitter? The Border Patrol Union called out the president, writing, "Dear Joe." I wish they would have put Joey or deranged Joe. That would have been nice. You own this catastrophic disaster at the border, lock, stock, and barrel. And the nice thing about having this, you're like, well, what's really the purpose of this? One, it just shows, again, that they don't really support Joe in the way that Karine Jean-Pierre's messaging out to the Americans. And two, we need record of this, because when something catastrophic takes place in the future, like a terrorist attack or something, because there's actual people out there that are evil in this world that want to harm your children and your husband or wife, your daughters, your cousins, all these people, at least we have record to go back, be like, it was this a-hole right here that Democrats voted for and want to vote for again. It's the Democrats' fault for what took place. It's the Democrats' fault that all this is happening. And we have to pray, you guys, that if Trump does actually win the election, and I hope that he does, that he's able to clean this up in 4 years, because 4 years is not a long time. It's easier to create a disaster in 4 years. You've seen it from Jimmy Carter. You've seen it from Barack Obama. You've seen it from Joe Biden. Than it is to actually clean up the mess in 4 years. So we'll see what Trump can do. He's going to have to go full blown. He's going to have to put in a lot of work. But it says here, you created it. You nursed it along, just like Joey's receiving something from a nurse. You encouraged it. You facilitated it. It's all yours. Wrote NBPC. Don't run from it now like a coward. Signed, the Border Patrol agents you've thrown under the bus. Well, he's also thrown Trump under the bus. He's thrown Putin under the bus. He's thrown Xi over the bus. The only person he hasn't really taken blame for is himself. And that's why Border Patrol's out here saying, look, this is you. You allowed this to happen, you dumbass. And don't make me play the clip. We've all seen the clip. There's actually others out there now. 4 more years. They want 4 more years of this, you guys. Illegal immigrants are killing Americans. Violent gang members are killing Americans. Fentanyl's killing Americans. It's coming from China pouring through our border. But Democrats want all of this to take place, you guys. I can't. Honestly, I try to think about it. I try to wrap my head around it. I don't know what these Democrats are thinking. They could say all they want about Republicans. There's just certain issues where they're just flat out wrong. Like, they are just clearly wrong. They don't want to accept it. Somebody go, well, the insurrection, Brad, you're wrong. If you want to call it an insurrection because by definition maybe it was, that's fine. I mean, it doesn't matter to me. You know what I mean? Like, again, I'm not beholden to a party or a president or a corporation. If you want to call it an insurrection, whatever. I saw the tape. I've said there was idiots that stormed the Capitol. They're idiots. And I don't classify them as Republicans or conservatives because they don't hold the values that we hold. They might self-proclaim that they are, but I don't give a shit. They're not. And then you have some other people that were given a VIP tour of the Capitol. So I can have a lot of different opinions about it. But if it makes people feel better for calling it insurrection, then sure, whatever. I don't give a shit. You know what I mean? It happened years ago. It's over now. It wasn't the darkest day in American history like the media played it up. They played 6 minutes of the 40,000 hours. I don't believe them. They tend to lie about a lot of things that have taken place over the last few years. They clearly lied about the election fraud. They clearly lied about January 6th. They lie about a lot of things. So if they want to sit there and it makes them feel better, warm in heart, it was an insurrection. Oh my God, Trump's the most terrible man. Then, you know, it says all I need to know about that individual, right? It says everything I need to know about them, that they're an idiot. They're not able to think critically. And, you know, there's just one of those people in society that just, you know, don't have their shit together, I guess. I'm not saying I do. I'm not perfect by any means. I'm not saying I'm holier than thou, but, you know, hell. Speaking of people that don't have their shit together, The View. Host wants Trump censored in potential debates, worries Biden would lose. Jesus, can we take a sip of coffee after that? Holy, what a headline. What a headline. Oh my God. I just saw the headline. I haven't actually read it yet. I want to experience this with all of you. The hosts of ABC's The View weighed in on what seems to be an increasing probability that the 2024 presidential election will be a rematch of 2020's Donald Trump versus Joe Biden, and what a potential debate between the two might look like. Well, Joe fumbling, probably hopped up on drugs most likely, because there's just no way in hell that guy's getting on the debate stage. All we need to do is take a mashup of all the 88 interviews he's done, where Trump's done like 300 already. I think Obama at this time was like 400 something. Joey's done 88. And all we need to do is look at that compared to how he's performing on the debate stage and give him a drug test. I'm just saying, if they're not going to give him a cognitive test, can we get a drug test out of this? So as they went around the table during Monday's broadcast, just spewing a bunch of nonsense, the co-hosts offered a series of suggestions regarding debates, ranging from co-host Sarah Haynes calling for Trump but not Biden to be censored in real time, to Whoopi Goldberg wishing that former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton had kicked Trump in the crotch during the 2016 matchup. So let's see these tapes. Yes, we're all going to be subjected to this horror of these knuckleheads that paid a lot of money to be on a show that I can't believe anybody watches.
I disagree with you, actually. And I say that because normally my gut would tell me it's good for democracy. I caveat that with, if we did not know these two men as well as we do, it would be more important for them to be debating. The problem is, for the reasons you just spelled out, Donald Trump comes on and I wish they'd put him in phone booths and cut mics after a certain amount of time, because in addition to the fact checking, he overtalks, gaslights, and everything else. So oftentimes the comparison to Donald Trump makes anyone look less than on some level. You know, like, I know he looks crazy too, but remember how he'd like come behind Hillary when she was like, he was like always hovering. He has these like nonverbal cues that could lead some to believe, oh, he's so strong, or he's this, but he just blows the whole thing out of the water. And if he hasn't debated anyone yet, the only debate I would like to see is him and Nikki Haley. If he would debate Nikki Haley, I would support that. I don't think Biden needs to, since Donald Trump has done nothing to participate in this democracy since he lost.
Hillary.
What has Joe done? Joe took classified documents when he wasn't vice president anymore, or senator. Well, I mean, what did he do in the time between of all those things? Like, what has he done for democracy? Russia's invaded Ukraine. China is putting massive amount of military efforts near Taiwan. You got massive illegal immigration. You have violent gang members. You have terrorists in our country now, present time in the hundreds that we know about. Imagine the ones that we don't know about. You got Canada, our northern friend, going full socialist. Mexico doesn't have their shit under control. They're actually shipping people to the border. So you have that taking place. Iran wants to wipe Western civilization off the face of the earth. Joe Biden, speaking of democracy, is giving them $6 billion in humanitarian aid. And then talk about gaslighting. Gaslit all of us, saying, well, it's frozen. They're not going to be able to touch it. They haven't touched a single penny. All of a sudden, they're siphoning money from it for humanitarian aid. Well, it's fungible. They're not going to be able to spend it on, terrorism. Yeah, but it frees up $6 billion for them to spend on terrorism. All the while, they just attacked one of our ships that's sinking now, and Joey doesn't want to do anything about it. So you also have Whoopi Goldberg here, just another knucklehead. Like I said, you guys, I've always stated this. It just shows how great America is, the fact that you can make millions of dollars to be on TV like this and have a bunch of people supposedly, allegedly watch you and just spew a bunch of nonsense. And like I said, get paid for it. I mean, hell, Karine Jean-Pierre gets paid $180,000 and not even answer a question. And her job is to what? Answer questions. It just shows you how great this country is.
I was going to say, Hillary should have said to him, get away from me, you orange menace. Yeah. She should have said that.
She should have kicked her foot backwards and hit him where
Joe
it hurts.
Biden, I believe he said, shut up, man, or keep quiet, man.
Yeah.
So, there is that.
I just want to go back to Joy Behar here, because this is the lady that got all excited and was bragging about how Joe Biden works out every morning. No, he's physically fit. She's one of the nut jobs, you guys. She's one of the idiots and these morons. And I'm sorry, she is. Not everybody's an idiot and moron, but she is, because she sits there and she thinks Joe Biden's mentally fit. I mean, these people are off their rocker. It's insane. So, moving into other news, it's just why even spend more time on that freaking nonsense. You have commander of Germany's military space command warns about potential Russian space weapons. So this is actually worse than what I thought it was. We covered this in yesterday's live stream episode, to where our Congress basically exposed, I hate to say it, classified information as if it was unclassified. They didn't really give the details on it, but they created a frenzy and kind of a panic here in the United States. It is actually pretty bad. So the commander of Germany's military space command warned late last week that the purported nuclear weapon, yes, you heard that correctly, and there's a lot of speculation on that Russia is considering developing for use in space would render space unusable, potentially forever. And my jaw dropped when I saw that paragraph because it was never explained, at least from what I've seen and heard, in that way. Speaking at an event at the Munich Security Conference, you have this major general weighing in on the recent revelation about the weapon that the U.S. basically talked about last week. Quote, if somebody dares to explode a nuclear weapon in high atmosphere or even space, this would be more or less the end of the usability of the global comms or orbit. Nobody would survive in action like that. No satellite, either Chinese or Russian, and American or European. If somebody calculates rationally, nobody would employ such a weapon in space. The question is then why the Russians wanting to do that? Are we making this more extreme than it needs to be? That's the question. Because I don't trust our government all the time. They say a bunch of bogus shit, especially the Biden administration. So House Intelligence Committee Chairman Mike Turner, who we talked about yesterday in the live show, who drew public attention to this matter last week, said during an interview over the weekend that part of the reason they decided to call attention to the classified issue, and you guys are going to love this, pay attention here. Again, that he brought attention to this classified issue was because he was concerned that the administration was trying to cover it up, to cover up their inaction on the issue in the same way that they tried with the Chinese spy balloon. Folks, one sentence that is so freaking huge. It is so huge because we covered that in detail. We covered all the White House press briefings. We covered the satellite imagery, the mapping of these craft. You guys, I said it was a cover-up on the Chinese spy balloon. I said it was bullshit. The excuse of the Biden administration first, when they lied to us, they go, oh, well, we don't know what it is. We don't know how it got there. We just kind of caught it mid-flight. And we're going to wait to shoot it down over the Atlantic. We might not actually even do that because we don't want it to fall out of the air and hit anybody. Folks, it was in the middle of the United States. The amount of open land is head spinning on where you could shoot this thing out. So they wait till it goes over the Atlantic. And they're like, well, we don't know if we're going to be able to salvage and recover a bunch of stuff from it. It was wild, the amount of cover up regarding that Chinese spy balloon. They say, oh, well, we're not hiding anything from you guys. Oh, there's an investigation. Then they blew up like 3 more craft. And they missed one of them. They wasted like $1 million. I think it was like $500,000 a missile. They couldn't hit one of them. And finally they shot out of the sky. And then John Kirby steps on the podium and goes, yeah, we're probably not going to be able to recover that one. It's in terrain that's unreachable. United States military can't reach certain levels of terrain? Really? Does anybody actually believe that? Sounds like a cover-up. The big deal here is, again, what is this guy's clearance level, or what is his level in terms of Congress? He's the House Intelligence Committee chairman. And he's telling you straight up that they covered up the Chinese spy balloon. Just out there in the open and nobody's talking about it. Like, what the hell? So it turns out, again, that this Chinese spy balloon was doing a lot more than what our government led us on to believe. And by the way, they didn't just catch it over our airspace. Like, oh yeah, we kind of just randomly saw it because people were recording it with their cell phones. No, they physically saw it leave mainland China and fly over our entire airspace before they wanted to do anything, because they probably couldn't wake the president up to actually tell him what the hell was going on. So that was a big revelation. Not just the fact of, hey, you know what? This could render the entire space area, the entire freaking globe of space unusable if the Russians launch this bad boy, but also the fact that, again, oh, the Chinese spy balloon was a cover-up, and we're just going to kind of sink that in there and not really talk about it. I love the Daily Wire. I'm not hounding them by any means. Just a huge revelation. You also have Lieutenant Colonel Tony Vincent, an active duty scientist in the United States Air Force, who is currently the director of advanced physics courses at the Air Force Academy, wrote in September 2022 piece about the dangers that are posed by a nuclear weapon being detonated in space. Vincent highlighted what happened when the Atomic Energy Commission, in collaboration with the Defense Atomic Support Agency, detonated a nuclear weapon in low Earth orbit back in the summer of 1962. So it's clearly been a while. Joe Biden remembers. Joe Biden was alive back then. Some of you might have been alive back then, but your brain is a lot sharper than hell Joe's is. The test was condemned. Starfish, codename rather, Starfish Prime, and it revealed an unfortunate lesson. Even one high-altitude nuclear detonation is particularly effective at destroying satellites. Not only were satellites in the line of sight destroyed, but even satellites on the other side of the freaking Earth were damaged and rendered inoperable. Starfish Prime damaged or destroyed roughly 1/3 of all satellites in low Earth orbit. Holy crap. I've never even heard of that. Starfish Prime? These code names are out of control. So can you basically, you have something like that, right? If that's low Earth orbit, if this bad boy's in orbit, everything's donezo. Vincent said the commercial satellites need to become hardened against radiation to avoid being susceptible to nuclear space weapon, but cautioned that while the cost to do so has fallen, this practice historically drives the component price up by roughly factors of 10 to 100, potentially increasing the size and mass of the total payload. So saying they can navigate around this, but probably not going to happen. Why do that? Because there's no threat in the first place. But now that this threat's actually something serious here, and the Russians haven't actually deployed it yet, the hope is that, I don't know, maybe the globe comes to terms of we probably shouldn't do this. I've always been curious if the United States has nuclear weapons in space and just didn't tell anybody. It wouldn't surprise me one damn bit if we do. We just don't like the fact that another nation, and rightfully so, wants to throw up a nuclear freaking warhead or something out there in space. I think that we already have it. I think we've had nuclear warheads up there for a while. We just haven't told anybody. Well, in our last bit of information here, last bit of newsy news, a lot of random stories today. Biden failing on world stage, cargo ship could sink after Houthi attack. U.S. drone downed, U.S. cargo ship hit. Now, there's Joey, just looking confused. Yeah, Joe, that's a camera. Yeah, buddy, you're supposed to smile and talk to it. I know you don't want to answer any questions, but that's our president, supposedly elected, cleanest and fairest election. If you didn't see the first bit of today's show, we talked about how there's a new research article out there, new research poll-ish, if that's what you want to call them, doing a terrible job, new research study, that basically said Donald Trump would have won the 2020 election if there wasn't mail-in ballots and people just openly admitting to election fraud. So if you haven't checked that out, that's the first segment. Go back and watch that one because you're going to love it. Well, here's the Houthi attack, the cargo ship that I mentioned earlier. President Joe Biden is once again failing on the world stage to protect American interests and deter aggression from America's enemies as the Iranian, yes, you heard that correctly, Iranian-backed Houthi terrorist organization, the very Iranians, the government, to be more specific, that Joe Biden's given $6 billion of humanitarian aid to. So they're giving humanitarian aid upwards of $6 billion. I've heard upwards of $10 billion to be specific. And they're just backing terrorist organizations all around the world to attack our cargo ships, our allies' cargo ships, and also, take down our drones, which is millions of dollars. So organization seriously damaged a cargo ship near the Arabian Peninsula. And I'm hearing this thing's going down. I've heard it's not recoverable. We'll see if that changes. Over the weekend, it appeared to shoot down a U.S. drone. British Maritime Authority said the attack on the Belize flagged commercial ship vessel happened 35 nautical miles south of Yemen. In the I'm not even bothered pronouncing that. Something straight connecting to the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden. So the front of the vessel and its engine room were hit by an anti-ship ballistic missile. An official at the ship's company told Bloomberg. The crew was forced to abandon the ship due to the damage. The Houthis claimed in a statement that the ship was or had suffered catastrophic damage and it was now at risk of potentially sinking. The ship's security firm, we know she was taking in water. There's nobody on board now. The owners and managers are considering options for towage. Now, this is a little bit of a silly thing to say, but where are all the environmentalists? Like Taylor Swift, Leonardo DiCaprio, all these A-listers. I think they're holier than thou. Like, they think they're godlike above the rest of us. Like, where's the Davos people? These world elites that always say, like, you need to recycle. Like, you need to do everything you possibly can to save the world. And if you don't do so, like AOC said, the world's going to be done in like 12 years. So we have 6 years left before the world ends. Where are all of them at on this? Like, do they enjoy this stuff? Because now you're just polluting the water. Like, what's stopping this from being an oil tanker and spewing tons of oil into the ocean? I don't hear them speaking up over stuff like this. Isn't that weird? Now, Joe Biden isn't speaking up either because Joe Biden allowed 127 attacks. I know it was more than that, but 127 attacks before he actually did anything. And clearly, whatever he's doing still is not enough. And it just shows you when you have a weak president, do we need to show the picture? A weak president like that, Joe Biden, the response looks weak as well. This looks like, oh, Jesus. That guy won. So I know you guys are going to bullshit. He did. Look, allegedly, he won. I know that people didn't show up for this guy. I know he couldn't sell out arenas. If this guy sold if Joe Biden seriously wanted to make money rather than taking it from Ukraine, China, Romania, how Donald Trump created like cards and then a sneaker line. If this guy created a diaper line, sold out. The amount of judo that has to be held in that guy's diaper, you make a baby size for that, sold out. Have on the butt say 46, number 46, President of the United States, the presidential seal. Easy millions. Easy. Yes, I'm laughing at my own joke, and it was damn good, just like this cup of coffee out of the Bald Brad Show mug. I told you guys, we have fun hanging out together. We have the best community. We're small, but damn, do we have a good community here, and there's nothing better than spending our mornings together as patriots that love this damn country, because you got a lot of people like Joe Biden that claim they love this country, but do everything they possibly can to destroy it from the inside out. So the successful missile strike represents a new escalation in the region by the Houthis, as this marks the first time that a crew has been forced to abandon ship because of the level of damage sustained from one of the group's terrorist attacks. But I was told by John Kirby on the podium just 2 weeks ago that, you're going to know about this strike. Oh, Joe Biden's really thought about it. He's taking his time with it. And don't just think that's going to be the only strike. Yeah, they're really going to feel it. It just shows you how weak we are. I've always said, and you guys for long-time listeners, and even before this, I've always said this. Why are we dealing with the Iranians attacking our ships in the first place? Even with their little Puton, like their little boats, little platoon boats. Blow it out of the water and get footage of it and put it all over the airwaves. Yeah, we blew the fuckers out of the, I hate to cuss, but we blew them out of the water. They're shooting at us. Take them out. Cease to exist. They vaporized them. You're not finding any bodies. Gone. Let it happen. So that's what's taking place here. I've heard the ships going down. But they'll continue to attack us. They'll continue to go after our drones, our merchant vessels, because Joe Biden's weak and doesn't want to do anything about it. And Democrats absolutely love this type of stuff. They love the crime in their inner cities. They love the drugs in their inner cities that's killing their kids. They love their school systems completely getting ransacked. And by the way, losing funding because of these illegal immigrants that are in their cities. What else do they love? They love the fact that our social milieu, our social structure, our fabric is completely torn in this country and might not be repairable. They love the fact that Russia's invaded Ukraine. They love the fact that our foreign policy is weak. They love the fact that our economy sucks, even though it's being smokes and screens on terms of our graph going in an upwards trajectory. But you're all feeling it at the pump. You're all feeling it at the grocery store. Things aren't as great as they appear to be. And, there's a lot more that we can add to that. But Democrats will continue to vote for it because they love it. They're so stuck in their Trump derangement syndrome that they are willing to vote for Joe Biden again over Donald Trump because of the media. Look what the media has done against Donald Trump and has been doing against him ever since he went down that escalator. They've been doing it for a while. They loved him for a long time. He was on TV. They loved the guy. They were kissing his feet, massaging his shoulders, taking his money. All of a sudden, he becomes president and wants to do good for the country. And now they hate the guy. They don't like anything that he does. It's so wild to me. I understand he doesn't say the cleanest and appropriate things, but the guy grew up in New York. That's how New Yorkers talk. Get over it. We've become so pussified in this country. We've become so soft that we can't take a little bit of harsh words. Folks, this has been going on since the founding. You should read some of the letters that our founders sent to each other. Just ripping each other. Like insane wording to one another. That if you were to take it and write it basically in today's words, it would sound a lot like what Trump is saying, and maybe honestly even worse. So it's not out of the norm for people to talk like that. And by the way, they used to freaking duel one another, yet a president gets shot from dueling. So all this stuff took place. You got a bunch of babies, these snowflakes nowadays that get all upset. Oh my God, look what Trump said. Look what he said. That's so awful. This is so terrible. How can I live? How can he be president? He's supposed to be representing our country. Get over it. Get a bunch of other countries in the United Nations supporting freaking Hamas. You have millions of people taking the streets of the United States supporting a terrorist organization that beheads people, blows innocent people up, kidnaps and rapes people. Don't give me this crap of like, you're all upset over what Donald Trump says when you have people supporting actual terrorism in this country that actually support crime, support all this stuff taking place. Go blow smoke. Go blow smoke. So anyways, enough of me ranting and rambling. I hope y'all enjoyed this episode of the Bald Brad Show. If you want to drink out of a mug too, we're not making any profit off this. It's in Teespring. It's in the link below. Enjoy a cup of brew with me every single morning here on the Bald Brad Show. If you want to go crazy, there is a thanks button. There's a thanks button down here if you want to contribute to this episode specifically. It's a $2 one-time fee or $5, whatever you want to contribute if you feel like it. Don't feel like you have to. And then we got a lot of patrons here. If you want to join our membership here, there's not really any perks other than the fact you get badges and hang out with an awesome community. We would love for you to join. It's $4.99 or $9.99 if you want to go insane a month. We would love your support. It goes back into the show. And with that being said, thank you for watching all the way through. If you don't want to support monetary-wise, you just hanging out is absolutely enough for all of us here. We would love to have you nonetheless. Folks, I'll see you later here on the Bald Brat Show.